Hi, everybody. My name is Dave Attridge. I'm a person in long-term recovery. About 30 months right now. I did have some previous years before that of being in recovery, but I had a relapse for about 8 months, and I came back and I'm at about 30 months right now. I'll just give you a little background on myself. I was a musician for 18 and a half years full time. I had a wonderful, I was very blessed with a great career that I had. Didn't make that childhood rock star dream, but I ended up being able to work with some great people, including people like Stevie Wonder, B-52s, Little Bird Band. So I had a really good career, and funny thing about me was I never picked up in a regular basis when I was a musician for those 18 years. My whole focus was on my career. I mean, sure, there was the occasional line, the occasional joint here and there, but that wasn't it. It was when I actually decided when I was 33 that I was going to retire. Went through a divorce, and at that point, all rules were off, and I went on a 10-year run before I ended up having an overdose, which landed me in a 5-day coma, which landed me in 3.5 weeks inside the ICU. At that point, I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know what was available for me to help me stop. And I knew I had an issue, but I didn't know how to stop. And really, the overdose was what made me stop. And it took me to go to that in order to to actually be able to say, okay, I've got a problem, I need something to do with it. Like I said, that ended up happening. I ended up staying clean for about 2.5 years, but the problem was I was doing it for everybody else, not for myself. On Christmas about 30 months ago, I ended up going back out because I was like, I could just do one, and nobody will know. And Chris was like, that's what I did. And nobody knew. And 2 weeks later, I said, let me try another one. I can do 2 this time. Nobody will know. And after that, it was off to the races. Reason why is because I have what they call a brain disease. With most people, with everybody, in your brain you have food, water, shelter, pleasure. My brain, when I add a chemical to it, goes chemical, water, food, shelter, we'll take care of whatever, and that's where it takes for me. For me, it's like 1 is too many, 1,000 is never enough, because it takes over my complete life. And for those 8 months, I was right back up to the $1,400 a day habit that I had before. And $1,400 a day, you run out of money pretty quick after that. And so it took me to a life of thievery and robbing and stealing and just to get that next one. For me, they used to ask me, what triggers you? For me, it was waking up, because that's all my mind thought about, was getting that next drug, because that's what that brain disease does to me and makes, and I picked up the first time that was my choice. Absolutely, that was my choice. Did I know I had this disease? No, I did not. After that, even that 8-month run that I had with that relapse, it had taken over everything in my life. It not only took over everything in my life, but it took over everything in my family's life. Because now they're believe me, any family of someone that might have a substance use disorder problem, it goes through the entire family. It goes through all your friends. It goes to because all we care about at that point is the drug. That's all we care about. This time again, I knew I was in trouble. I knew, but this time a lot of shame kept me back. I don't want to come back and tell everybody I got an issue, even though everybody knew that I was back out. But it was a lot of shame. It was a lot of and what did it take? It took another overdose. Except this time it took the overdose was me taking a bottle of sleeping pills and taking them all, along with the 3-day bender that I was on. Ended up in an overdose. Luckily, it didn't put me into a coma. Luckily, I had a few days in the hospital, and I was out. But at that point, I knew if I go back out, I'm gonna die. There's no doubt about it. So at that point, I searched and searched and searched, and I finally found a place that out in Clifton Springs that would let me come for 7 days while I tried to look for a regular addiction. I lasted 5 days in there before I got kicked out, which again, I was totally still self-centered, it was all about me. Ended up finding a place out in Utica, went out to Utica, stayed there for 30 days, and then moved into Oneida, New York, into a supportive living, and I stayed there until Department of Social Services here said, you are coming home. We are not going to pay for you to be out in Oneida. And I said, well, I don't have a place to live. At this point, nobody will take me back in. And they said, well, we'll put you up at the Hotel Cadillac. And I was like, hell, you're going to put me up at Hotel Cadillac. But I had to come back. There was no way around it. So I did come back. I ended up couch surfing for the next few months with different people. Before I started a group called Recovery Now in New York. Before my relapse, and it was to help people that were in situations like me. I started out with what was called a film festival that I started called Rochester Recovery Film Festival. That went for a couple of years, and it was really interesting. Like, I thought I would know everybody that went to this, but when I would get the guest list, it would be 85% of the people I didn't know. And that's sort of what we have to go on. People want to learn. People want to know what's going on. So after 30 months ago when I got clean and came back in to recovery, I started back up this organization. And I'm heavily involved right now. It's probably one of the largest grassroots run organizations in this town. And we have made some serious moves on what is being called the opioid epidemic. I don't really like that. I think it's a drug pandemic because there's a lot of people that are just not doing, there's a lot of people out there that don't do heroin that have issues. There's 21 million Americans across the United States that have problems. It might be with cocaine, it might be with marijuana, it might be with alcohol. But to me, a drug is a drug is a drug. For me, I can't pick up a drink because I know and I don't consider myself an alcoholic, but if I pick up a drink, it's going to lead me to something else. Which is going to lead me to something else, which is going to lead me to something else. To me, it's just a drug is a drug. There's, my favorite was cocaine and heroin. Those were my favorites, but believe me, if something else came along, I did it too. So anyway, I just want to give you a little background on me, and now I'll give you some what we've been doing with Recovery Now New York. We've taken a lot of public stands, and especially in the last year or so, with this pandemic, as I'm calling it, or public health crisis that we're having. I like to deal on the local end of things. I can talk about nationally, but I feel like if we're going to make any moves, we got to start here locally. Which there's not a lot of support for it here. Our leaders do not want to talk about this pandemic. They've sort of been forced right now. If you do hear that, they're being forced because of groups like mine. and some others that are pushing the envelope on this. Nobody likes to talk about this. Usually a drug issue is swept under the rug. And you know, it's not something that you can talk to your neighbor with over the fence, you know, in your backyard. It's not something people want to talk about, you know. But so many people are yet affected by this. We had 169 deaths in this county last year from overdose. If you count the other counties that we handle, we're looking at 209. And nothing was being said. Nothing was really being said. We had to force that issue to come out. And it's sort of amazing because you would hear the Zika virus. Oh my God, you know, we got a plan for that. There's this whole huge plan for the Zika, the Ebola. How many people died here of Ebola? And they got this huge thing. They even got a plan that they work every month about a plane crashing into the city. How many planes have crashed into the city? You know, but yet we don't have a plan for this pandemic that's going on, that has taken, you know, 169 lives of Monroe County residents. And it hasn't gotten any better. I'm going to give you a few figures right now. 2 days ago, Monday, Monday, we had 3 overdose deaths. 37-year-old mother in a hotel in Gates. We had a young gentleman, 24 years old, who was in a wheelchair, a really good kid. He overdosed and died. We had another male in Charlotte died, and this was just on Monday night. So far this month, and I believe we're on the 14th right now of this month, there have been 31 overdoses with 8 deaths so far. This is the 14th of this month. Last month, November, we had 19 deaths from overdose. In October, we had 16. In September, we had 24. Between the months of January and May, we had 103. We're surpassed last year. I don't have July and August figures yet. I'm waiting on them. And why? Because they don't want to release these numbers. And these numbers are so important because they get us funding, they get us resources. If you go to any other county like Erie County, they're saying, we're not perfect on these numbers, but we're pretty sure this is what they are. And they're getting a lot of funding, a lot more funding than we are. You know, and we are about 4 to 6 months behind right now as far as autopsies go, and being you know, shown that these are overdose deaths. That is a problem. That's a problem just for families trying to get some closure, trying to get some answers. 4 to 6 months waiting for a kid that died, waiting to find out the reason why. So these have been some things that we've been pushing the envelope with. We actually, when they announced the numbers, it was the day before we had said, and we went public with it, that we were going to do a thing called No More Shoes, where we were placing shoes of people that had died of overdoses on the steps of Monroe County, a building at 39 West Main. They immediately, the day before, they released the numbers because I was pushing for them, and so was Todd Baxter, our new sheriff. He was pushing for them, and so 10 minutes before his press release about the pandemic, he ended up. They released those numbers of 169 people. Strange thing was, as that press conference ended, Democrat Chronicle reporter was walking back to her car, and when she got to her car, she took a look in, and there was a woman shooting up in her car right there. This is not a city problem. It's a county problem. It is in every suburb around Greece, Pittsford, you name it, Victor. They are all. This is where most of the problems are coming through. In fact, on North Clinton, which is known as the hot spot to go down, after a study done there of cars that were coming into these areas and leaving, 90% of the cars were from suburbs. 90%, 10%. And with this disease, and I think people are are finally seeing, it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Puerto Rican, doesn't matter. It doesn't worry, the disease doesn't worry about, how much money you make. It doesn't worry about any of that type of stuff. All it does is it wants you dead as it starts up. A lot of people wonder why are we having this? Why are people putting in these fentanyl? Why are they putting in elephant tranquilizers? Why are they putting in this type of stuff? I don't think it's anybody out there that is going, I'm going to go kill a bunch of people and do that. It could be, but I don't think that's the thing. What it starts off is, hey, it's one dealer who's got a lot of people, and he wants some more people. Hey, I'll put a little fentanyl in it, have a little extra kick, more customers will come to me. Except these dealers aren't pharmacists, so they don't know how much they're putting into it. The problem that comes is that, as from an addict's point, is when we hear fentanyl, and we're in active addiction, we hear fentanyl, we hear elephant tranquilizer, that doesn't scare us. Because first of all, we think that we're indestructible. But second of all, that makes us go, I gotta go get some of this shit. Because that must be some really good stuff. Enough to kill somebody. But I gotta go get it, because I gotta try. Unfortunately, that is what happens. And you see a lot more deaths. They're trying to find that. So I know I'm sort of like going all over, but I'm trying to explain, where a lot of this is coming from. After that Monroe County, after they released the numbers, I received a visit from the county exec's right-hand man, telling me, you're not going to do that tomorrow. You're not going to do that at the county. And my answer was, who are you? And you don't pay my paycheck as far as I know. So they were, I don't want to say I was threatened, but there was a lot of, if you do this, there's going to be police, there's this, that. So I ended up moving it to the Liberty Pole, which I got just as much effect, right on that corner. And it was pretty powerful, and people started to say, we need to know these numbers. These families need to know these numbers. This is mass casualties. The numbers. Could you imagine, the health director, who I met with on Monday, actually, he was on the news last week saying, you gotta get your flu shot, because we had 3 people die last year. Okay, I understand that, that's great. But what about the 169 that died last year?
From the flu?
Right, 3 people, yeah.
From the flu?
From the
Yeah.
flu, right?
People die from the flu.
Yeah, and so, again, it's not being talked about. But we're pushing, and it's gotta happen on a local level. We need more people, out there. We try to be as public as we can about this. I opened up, I was at a crisis forum in Gates, about it. They wanted me there to answer some questions, with the panel. I ended up talking to Chief Andretto of Gates, police department, and we said, you know what, we need a place that people can come to that need help, and that we can get in help as fast as possible. We need a place that families can come and they can ask questions, and and they can get some resources, and they can understand maybe a little bit more. 3 days later, we opened up a place at the Gates Town Hall. It's called Gates to Recovery. In fact, it's going on right now. It's every Thursday from 5 to 8. We opened it in 3 days. Cut the red tape. We ain't gonna deal with the red tape. Let's just do it. Let's open it up. It's been about 12 weeks since we opened that. We've gotten over 55 people into treatment. We've helped about 75 different families, and just a slew of people that come in for resources. And no cost to taxpayer, no cost to anybody. We do it ourselves. It's a volunteer thing, and that's what runs. It's been very, very successful, extremely successful. Finally, some other towns, some other counties are starting to ask us, hey, what do we got to do to do this? I've spoken at the legislation, to legislators for the past 3 months, asking them to please do something. Go out to your districts, educate your people, let them know what's going on, let them know what's killing our people. Because this is not a problem that has one answer. There's many different answers to it. And it's also something that we need to think out of the box a little bit on. There's just not one way to recover. Everybody, it's not the same cookie cutter treatment plan for everybody like it used to be. And incarceration is not the answer. We found that out. Programs like Just Say No, we found out were not the answers. The DARE program that used to be in the schools, they found 70% of those people that went through DARE ended up being in active addiction. So it's not like we can go back. We can't go back to the Reagan era. We can't go back and pull out those ideas. It's going to take new ideas, new solutions. And it comes from many different angles. I'm going to use, for example, I'm going to use Colorado. A lot of people feel that we should legalize marijuana. I agree with the medical marijuana, I do. But before we go legalizing like Colorado has, like Los Angeles just has, it's just that's not the answer. Since that has happened in Colorado, gang violence has tripled since that. And in the past 5 years, actually, it's been 5 years right now since Colorado did it. Why? Because we just took away an income from a certain amount of people. We take it away, they have to find money. Even though it shouldn't be that we have to figure out a solution to that, we have to, because it's gonna be there. We've also found that in Colorado, that more teens now have drug problems than ever before, 4 times before they actually legalized. There have been more drug arrests in schools in Colorado than they've ever had before. So it's not like we gotta rush into something, but we do have to look at this from a whole, because there's just not one solution. Back to us here, the county exec released her budget, which got passed the other night while I was there. She added in money for 2 more toxicologists. That's great. That's gonna help some families get some more answers quicker but no money towards the actual fight. No money about, getting into the schools, helping, starting programs in school, doing prevention, doing education, nothing like that. They haven't. They've also now are looking at going into what they call drug replacement therapy, which would consist of Suboxone, which would consist of methadone. I'll give you a little bit on both of them. Both of them are very addictive, Suboxone and methadone. Methadone is synthetic heroin. I couldn't explain it any better. Each county in New York is allowed to decide how long it's recommended that a person goes, so that these agencies can keep them on for that amount of time. Suboxone in Monroe County is 3.5 years, which is about average for the rest of the counties too, and most doctors. Methadone is looked at life here in this county. It is looked, if you're put on that, you're going to be on it for life, which I necessarily don't agree with. So I mean, these are issues right there that we have to. Right now, what they're trying to make. If you go into an emergency room right now and you say I have a problem, they mainly kick you out. They mainly say there's nothing we can do for you. You gotta go. In this town, most people that go looking for help are told 3.5 weeks to 4 weeks. A wait before they can get a bed. The way that we look at it is most people will be dead in those 3.5 weeks if they're going to look for help at that point. There's when people, especially with heroin, are looking for help, it's a very small window of opportunity, and we have to react quickly because the brain's going to take them right back up. It's going to take them right back up. We have been getting people into treatment this past year. Like I said, with Gates to Recovery, but my agency's also been doing it since January of last year. Just when people called us, we were getting them in. And 100% of the people, up until August, 100% of the people we sent out of town. We sent out of county, we sent wide because there was nothing here. There was nothing here. And believe me, the county still pays for it when we send them out. And 100% of our people were sent out that way. We have a lot of resources here, but we don't have a lot of beds for detox. I can guarantee you right now, anybody can pull out a cell phone and call SBH, which is the only real medical detox right now. And I guarantee you'll get told 3 to 6 weeks. And don't call us, we'll call you. Don't keep calling us. That's exactly how it goes. So we have, we don't have enough detox beds in this area to take care of the amount of problem that is out there. I actually have just introduced a medical device that I've been working with for the past probably 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. Called the Bridge. It's a device that is about that big. Gets adhesive down to the back of the ear, and we put it on to people that are 14 to 18 hours into withdrawal. And when we put it on, these little wires come out of it and they go around the ear, and basically it sends messages to the brain saying you're not withdrawing. They keep it on for 120 hours. And literally I'll give Dave some of the videos that we've taken people in jail, female and male, put it on. Within 10 minutes, they were going, wow, some of my symptoms are gone. Within 30 minutes, they were like, what's going on? I'm not throwing up, I'm not sweating, I'm diarrhea, I'm not. Yeah, it takes away all of the symptoms. And they can get through a 5-day withdrawal.
What is it called?
It's called the Bridge.
When did this bridge come out? We had received FDA approval before for pain management and for methadone withdrawal.
2 weeks ago, we just got FDA approval, which was actually one of the first devices that the FDA expedited, and we just were able to get the FDA approval to actually say for heroin withdrawal. So we just got that 2 weeks ago. I immediately jumped on it. So I am setting up with a couple agencies. I'm hoping by January, mid-January, that I'll be able to offer this. The nice little thing about this also, and I'll go through this quick because I don't want to seem like I'm pushing this or selling this. The nice thing about it is it's a $600 piece of equipment, and it's $750 on the average for a doctor to put it on and take it off. Total $750, so you're looking about $1,350. Not bad compared to most 5 to 7 day rehabs. Our detoxes are $8,000.
So it's nice, it works out in that aspect too. But we are gonna do some clinical trials here. We have done other studies throughout Indiana, and especially in Jefferson County. We did drug court, we did treatment centers, we did probation, we did those type of things, and we had a 77% success rate. Usually what happens is you take somebody on that, and after they get through with that withdrawal, we give them 2 days of naloxone, which is opioid blocker. We give them 2 days of that, and then on the third day, we usually start them on Vivitrol, which is a whole other drug replacement therapy, but much better. It's not addictive. It's a shot that you get for 30 days, so there's no actual pills or strips or anything being sold, or being out there. You get one shot in the bum every 30 days. If you drink on it, you'll get violently sick. But if you try and use, you won't be able to. You will not get high if you use any, because it's opioid blocker and it's in there for 30 days, so it will keep blocking. So you can try and get high, but you're not going to. So that has been very successful. I have backed that quite a bit myself. So you're hearing a lot of different, ways that we're trying to combat this right now. They are looking at right now, if somebody comes into the emergency room, they will be prescribed a 5-day dose of Suboxone. In order for them during that 5 days to try and do a program. I'm not a huge fan of Suboxone, but it's better than just kicking somebody out to the street right now. But it comes down to this where it's we're not getting the attention that we should be. Erie County is getting a ton of resources, a ton of money. Thank you, Onondaga. They're getting a ton of attention, and because their leaders are talking about it, because they're saying, "Hey, we had 3 people die the other night. That this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable." And our leaders don't seem to want to talk. And which is a problem, and that's why we keep pushing them and keep pushing them. I've met with the mayor. I've met with the county exec. Believe me, I'm up them so much, and they do not like me, but that's okay. Because we got to keep trying to get this out there, to start to talk about it, and to start to have some resources of money put towards this. By us not talking doesn't mean it's going to go away. And the amount of people that are dying, and most of them are young people. We're almost killing off a whole new generation. Across the United States, we are experiencing 9/11 every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks, 9/11 here. The president just did. He had 2 options of going. He could have went the Stafford Act, or he could have went the public health crisis way. Stafford, if he went the Stafford Act, we would have gotten into like FEMA. We would have been able to get into those funds. We would have been able to. FEMA would have came in and started to set up things across the country to try and help us. We went to the Public Health Crisis Act, which in one way would have been really good, because what it does is it opens up doctors into rural areas, which believe me, in Rochester, we're sort of lucky because of the resources that we have. You go up North Country, there ain't nothing. There's nothing up there. And they got huge problems just like we do. It would have sent doctors into, it will send doctors into there. A lot of resources it will give. But the problem is this is what is estimated to be right now is $75 billion is needed to fight this across the country. That public health crisis fund is $56,000 right now. That's it, $56,000. That is literally like if we were to take all the people that are addicted right now that have a substance use disorder program, that is like giving them 2 cents a piece and say, go to your local mall and shoot in your pennies and make it worse that your addiction will go away. Basically what it's saying. Since it took us forever to get the president. I work also my organization also works with a national group called Facing Addiction. Wonderful group. It took us forever to try and get the president to even say there was a problem and to declare this. Now that he's declared it, it's been how many? It's been 3 months. 3 months, I believe. 3 months and nothing's been done. Nothing has been done. We just had a drug czar be put in who has absolutely no addiction or recovery education, experience, or anything, really going in blind. These are problems.
I could have done it.
These are, yeah, absolutely.
This is what not trying looks like.
So, it's about getting people together. It's about, learning, and it's about, it really is about, it is about, this is gonna take the entire community. And it needs to take the entire community quick, because I will tell you in other communities, they are saying, which, before I say this, let me say that. Last year we had 623 Narcan saves. Okay, so that means first responders going, Narcan.
Could you explain what Narcan is? Maybe someone doesn't know.
Sure, Narcan is an opiate blocker. And there are things called Narcan kits, which anybody that ever wants one or wants to be trained on how to use it, let me know. It's a small kit that comes with 2 shots that go up the nose, full of Narcan. What it'll do is it'll go right up to the brain and block. It becomes the blockers. It'll stop the heroin from having you overdose. It will completely block it. It's a rather if you've never seen it before, it can be very, very terrifying to see because when you hit somebody with that, before they may be gray, hardly any pulse, blue, you give them that and they pop up like they were in a race running. And it just reverses the whole overdose. We have these kits. These kits are available to be used. Anyone can get one now. You don't need a prescription. You can just go to your pharmacy and you can ask for one. There may be a copay. I do a lot of these trainings. We give out free kits. We give a lot of trainings, and we also register you so that you're in the Good Samaritan law. So if anything was to go wrong or something like that, you're covered because you're actually trying to do that. I will tell you that as the product gets stronger, the more need for the Narcan is there. Some people I've known needed to be hit 8 times, which is crazy. Most people are 1 or 2. 1, 2, there's a lot of 3s. And so we had these saves. These people would have been dead if they were not Narcan. And our first responders did that. That was 623. And that's just first responders that we knew of. This year we know that there's 428 saves right now this year, but Trillium Health has done 200 and some odd saves. And that doesn't count hospitals, that doesn't count, So, there's another 600 people that could have that, that if they were not at the right time.
And anyone can be trained to use.
Anyone can, I personally won't train anybody below 14, but yes, I will train.
No, but there doesn't have to be a medical person.
Nope, anyone can be trained. It's a very simple thing. Our training is like 30 minutes, and you're all set. It's a very simple thing. It really is. And it can save lives. If anybody's ever interested, let me know. Okay. So these Narcan saves, they've done a wonderful job. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm an emergency medical technician, and I work in the city of Rochester. So
Yep.
I'm kind of like ground zero.
Sure.
And, in my personal experience, Narcan is both good and also very bad at the same time for a lot of reasons. And I was curious in terms of the Narcan training. Narcan is often considered to be a very benign drug, and it's actually not. So when lay people are trained to administer Narcan, basically, as you said, you're essentially putting the person into a rapid opioid withdrawal.
Right.
Okay, which can cause seizures, which can cause
Absolutely.
flash pulmonary edema, which can cause, if they've used cocaine and heroin, it can cause lethal cardiac dysrhythmias, all sorts of terrible things.
Correct.
So I guess my issue is twofold with that. Is a lot of times people are getting Narcan and not seeking medical attention, and the issue with that is the things that I just mentioned, but also if you're not seeking medical attention after receiving Narcan, the Narcan can wear off before, as you know, the drug wears off, and you can go back into respiratory rest.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, with the lay public administering Narcan, another issue that we've seen is that you're training them to give it nasally,
Right.
and we're giving it intravenously,
Mhm.
where we're able to titrate the dose. You're giving the average nasal dose is 2 milligrams,
Right.
1 milligram in each air.
Correct.
And our dose starting IV is 0.4 milligrams, so we're giving a far smaller dose, which is generally it's better therapeutically, but also it can cut down on the side effects of that rapid withdrawal, the pulmonary edema, the cardiac dysrhythmia, all that bad stuff that come along with it. So I guess my question is, in the education that you're doing, are you kind of putting a emphasis on, hey, you still need medical attention, you still need to activate the 911 system, and also, are these people informed that, if they're near someone that overdoses, or if they administer Narcan and they activate the 911 system, that they will not be in trouble? Because we have a lot of issues where people are giving someone Narcan, or even just they don't have it, but they're calling the overdose in, and then they take off, and we're not able to find the person. And that's a huge problem because they think they're gonna be in trouble and they're not.
Right.
And so they're covered under the New York State Department of Health laws.
Yep.
So, a couple weeks ago, we had this very situation where someone called in an overdose, and we couldn't find the person. And we looked and looked and looked, and we almost went back in service saying, there's no one here. And then we finally found this guy in an alley, and he was, 1 foot in the grave, so.
Yeah.
I guess two-part question, are you educating people that they will not be in trouble if they call in an overdose or give Narcan, and also are you educating them that they still need to seek medical attention?
The first thing to answer you,
Sorry, that was extremely long.
No,
There's
no,
still a
no,
lot
no.
of thoughts
No,
and
it's-
questions, issues, so.
it's great though, about this is, the first thing that we tell anybody, if you come upon somebody, first thing you should do is call 911. And end the story, call 911. I actually, a friend of mine actually, was hit with the Narcan, and then, no one had called, and at 911, and, he had said, well, I'll go to the hospital, don't worry, I'm gonna go to the hospital. They found him in the, hospital parking lot. It came back, for only so long with that, So yes, we always tell people, the first thing that you should do if you come upon this is call 911. Absolutely, 100%. The other thing is, yes, we do express that it is a law that if someone calls, and as long as the police don't show up and there's an amount that looks like intent to sell,
Right,
no one will get arrested.
right, 'cause
No.
I constantly run into a situation where either the user thinks that they're in trouble, or the person that's calling in the overdose, who could just be a bystander, or they could have been shooting up together, and, so that's a huge part of it. I
Huge
think
part.
is,
Because we encourage people in harm reduction way to not use alone.
right.
Please,
And,
if you're gonna use with somebody.
Yep, and,
Um,
so they, always think that they're in trouble, and that's why they tend to call and take off, and even the cops are saying, you're not in trouble, we're looking
Right.
for the people that are selling
That's right.
dope that's killing people, but I think that a lot of people don't know that, so it makes them apprehensive to.
Yeah, we try to push that very hard, that people will not be arrested. And we push it into the effect of, the governor's even signed that into law, that there will not be. And you're right, most of the, just about all the police agencies now are completely following that, but I'll even bring up Brockport, where he had arrested, the chief there had arrested, the two people that were there, the one that had overdosed, and he arrested them right afterwards and arrested the person that was there. 3 weeks later, both of them were dead. And that changed attitude in that town.
I was gonna say, cause that's never happened to me personally in the Rochester area, which is obviously good, so I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
at least Rochester police in the city, they.
The
kinda
city
do
police,
their own-
Yeah, they're doing a great job. Even the guys out of North Clinton, I mean, they're trying to do everything that they can. I can't say more for the police department. I work a lot with the Gates Police Department. In fact, we had one situation where it was a soccer mom. She was at home. She used while the kids were at school, and she overdosed. They found her. The police asked the family to not announce that she had died for a couple days. They took the cell phone. They ended up making a couple texts and, hey, I need some more. Guy came. They arrested him. They got him on. They arrested him for murder, and they arrested him for possession with intent to sell. We actually just went to his case hearing. He just confessed guilty to negligent homicide, and he pled guilty to the possession with intent to sell. And he's looking at probably about 4.5 years, I think, which it is. But it's a start. It's a start in that, and Gates Police have done that a few times. In fact, we hear some dealers right now that say, if you're in Gates, you come to us. We ain't going into Gates. We're not going to mess with that. So it's nice to see those type of things that happen. Also, they got a call that somebody was that a woman with 2 children were in the back of the car. She was shooting up in a parking lot. They came, arrested her, got her before she shot up. When the chief brought her back and while she was in holding, he called me and said, "Can you get her into treatment? Because then I'm not going to send her. I'm not going to send her to Monroe County. If you can get her into treatment now." And so we did. So it's good to see police agencies working like that. The law enforcement is coming, to work with that. But I've also been with them on calls. During the summer, they got a call of there's a baby downstairs screaming, and it won't stop screaming. And they went in there, and 11 or an 18-month-old, I think it was, and the mother was dead. An 11-year-old out in Greece that same day found his mother. Again, it's the education, it's the prevention that needs to be out there. It's so important. That is so, and we do need to get into these schools. And to be honest with you, I feel that we should start at 3rd grade. I think we can start off with alcohol. At 3rd grade, most kids know what alcohol is. They know it just from being at home. We need these type of programs in. Otherwise, we are going to see more of these people pass, and we're going to lose more of these residents.
Can I ask you about that? Because you mentioned before how DARE didn't work. So what would be if we were to get into the schools, what would we need to do that would be different?
DARE was just sort of like a just say no, and we're going to have fun ways of showing you, how not to use and don't do this and don't. Now I think what needs to be done is hard facts. When we go into schools, and I keep pointing at this is Ashley, she's my outreach director. When we go into schools, we actually, when each student walks in, they are handed an obituary of someone from the age of 24 or less that has passed, because of an overdose, and it's written in their obituary. I can, most of the time, I never do obituaries around here, because, I don't know, it could be a family member out there or whatever. So we always go about 100 miles out, but I can always pull 100 for the last 3 months, no problem. So each kid is given one of these, a different one, everybody has a different obituary. We also show a video where I was actually with the chief of police in Gates, where we were heading to a new treatment center grand opening. Got a call, some guy slumped over his car, over the wheel of his car in the middle of the busiest intersection in Gates, which is Lyle and Spenceport, all right there. We went to it, and it's all on camera when we got there, pulling him out of the car. It's gray. I truly thought he was dead. I thought that was it. This guy's done. But then did the whole Narcan thing. The EMS finally arrived and brought him right back. So to answer your question, this is what I think more is needed. We need more hard facts. We need to show what this is about. It's just not a fun little thing. It's not like the only thing I remember about Deere is they used to get these really cool cars from the drug dealers, and they would plaster Dare all over it. And I thought that's the only thing I remember from when I was a kid. But it wasn't taken so seriously, and that's why it needs to be taken so seriously. And we're getting to, and especially in this, and I'll wrap up pretty soon. But the public is getting tired. And it brings us back to the HIV days, where the public there wasn't an answer. There wasn't what we have now. And when you hear about HIV, it's nothing like what we heard about it then. And people were just like, let them die. It's the same thing starting to happen here. Just let them die. In Ohio and Kentucky, there's one town that is trying to pass. If a 911 operator recognizes the name, and it's more than they know that they've sent EMS there more than 3 times, to not send it to them. There's another, and the other one is the sheriff of the town of Kentucky. Any overdose calls he will not send anyone. Because he says he's putting his people at risk by them driving there at a fast rate of speed. I thought that was their job, but it's coming to that. You're starting to see things like that happen. What we did, and I'll finish up, but what we did was we have a program with, as I mentioned, working with facing addiction. We have a program that Rochester works, myself and 130 other residents, work with 14 other cities across the United States. San Diego, Baton Rouge, Billings, Montana, New Canaan, Connecticut, Annapolis, Chicago, I can go out. Large cities, small cities, medium-sized cities. Where what we have done is, in this town, is we have 7 categories. Those 7 categories go everywhere from business leaders, veterans, law enforcement, affected families, recovery advocates, prevention leaders. And there's 2 captains for each one of those teams, sometimes 3 captains. And then under each of them, there's another 15 to 20 advocates. We ended up with about 130 people right now. We have we did a mass training in October where Facing Addiction came in with all their people. We did a mass training to all the people on community organizing, to media programs, to how to talk. Believe me, we try to get away with that. I hate it. I also have led a group that is bringing in Recovery High School into town. We've been working on it for 3 years. And it basically is one addict helping another addict. That's how it works with me. That's why, another addict can relate to me, what I'm going through, what I understand. And we have found that in these schools, they've had success rate, huge success rate. There's about 35 right now in the country. They have a 77% graduation rate, and 97% of that 77% go on to college. We have also, because of these schools, we have also all of a sudden seen colleges are now opening up sober living and different areas. Stanford is one of them. MIT is another one. UCLA is another one. They don't advertise it because, of course, you know, they worry that some parent is going to go, they must have a drug problem. I'm not going to pay $100,000 a year for my kid to go there. So that's why a lot of schools won't do it. And they're under different names. I think the MIT one is like the Wolves Den or something. It's so crazy, but they're seeing that this works. And so we've been trying to get one into New York. We're pretty confident that we are going to be announced as the first one to open in New York State. It will be in Rochester. It'll actually be in Gates. In fact, we've been waiting for the answer. We had a big public forum on it. I'm waiting for the answer. And last week I started getting phone calls. Who's the architect? Who's this? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the governor just put out a request for an RFP for a $5 to $25 million school to be built. So nothing was said to me. So it looks like we got it. I'm not exactly sure, but it looks pretty good. So that's great because right now, if a kid has a problem, they take them out of school, they send them to the average 15-day rehab, and then what do? They turn around, they take the kid, and they put him exactly where he was, and right back into the fire. That kid has got a 90% chance of relapse, 80% in the first 30 days. So the school will try and help that. But what we've done with the other project, the community pilot project or community project that we're calling it now, we have 130 residents that are involved in this. We've came up with two major goals that we are going to try to achieve by May. And each of those categories that I told you, they're also going to have one goal each. So we're looking at 9 big things happening. This is a program that we're hoping, it'll be a year in May that we started it. We're hoping that this will go on for years and years and years to come. And again, this is something that we've just sort of gotten involved. It hasn't cost anybody anything in this town. Government, nobody. But 130 residents, it starts to be voices. That starts to be power. It starts to make people have to listen a little bit. Our Surgeon General has declared this to be a brain disease, has declared that it is a disease. But yet that stigma is still out there. I probably shouldn't talk about this. I was in a meeting last week with the senator from here who just.
Senator of state or federal?
Federal. A federal senator here who, for an hour, was just, this is a moral issue. This is a choice, and it's not. I can tell you, there's a great documentary called Addiction that HBO did. Wonderful documentary, and they show where they put in a person who's had a drug issue. They put them inside. They take an MRI of their brain. They show you their brain. They put them back in, and they show millisecond pictures. The person doesn't even see them. Just flying about, doesn't even see him, paraphernalia, drug use, blah, 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 blah. And you see the brain just go absolutely off the hook. It's a brain disease. And if we can't even get our leaders to understand that, it's hard. I mean, I walked out of that meeting just going, here we are.
Well, I think if you were to show some of these people the conditions in which addicts live, the choices that they make, I just can't fathom why anyone would choose to live that way, and that's kind of, that was like the turning point for me to realize it is a disease, because I'm like, no one in their right mind would want to be homeless and putting themselves at risk for infection, and
Yeah.
like all these other things, so I think that
Yeah, and Hep C.
they're not exposed, I don't think they're exposed to the actual, like, go on Joseph Ave or Clinton Ave or, and see how these people live and their day-to-day life. I think that you would be crazy to think that they're choosing that.
Yeah, and that's why we also do a lot of our stories have power, of telling a lot of the stories that folks of what we've gone through, things that, I mean, I've done. I didn't wake up and say, hey, I want to be an addict. I never said that. But I did things, I did lots of things that being able to recover. How did I do it? How did I do it? Because it really didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was your girlfriend, your wife, your boyfriend, your husband. It didn't matter. I would rob them. It did not matter. I didn't care. I didn't care if it was a little old lady pushing the out. Didn't care. Because it was all about that drug. There were just, there were certain things that I did that, I never would have thought I would have done. But I had to have that next one. And that was the big thing. So we're trying to make a lot of changes with this. And before when I was telling about the school, a few months ago we had done this great story with Channel 10 about the school, what it was all about, what was going to happen. It was great. At the end of the film, I was like, oh, it's such a great school. Such a great story. And of course, how did they tease it? Heroin high coming in, and I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. So we've been trying to get, the press to change their way, instead of saying addict, say a person with a substance use disorder. Instead of saying a relapse, say a reoccurrence, instead of, a former addict, say, a person in long-term recovery. We need to change some of those things. We're starting to see some of that happen. We are starting to see, but this is a huge problem. And the more that people can get involved and the more that we come up with, ideas and solutions for this huge problem that is, as far as I'm concerned, is the biggest mass crisis, public crisis we've ever had with this amount of people, many people dying. I mean, last year, more people died of overdose than we lost the entire Vietnam War. It's a lot of people. We did it 1 year. That was crazy. So it's something we need to talk about, and we need to talk to our officials about it. We need to talk to the people in power. We need to get people into offices that are going to talk about this. I firmly believe that Todd Baxter, one of his big things was this crisis, and I believe that is a big part of what got him into office. Because he came out, he was the first one talking about it. But we still haven't had a county official, our county executive or a mayor come out and just talk about that. Or hey, they opened up. I think in the city they opened up Evelyn Brandon on Mondays from 8 to 4 as a walk-in center. Guess what? People get high all hours of the day. We need something that's 24 hours. We need to have those places, and we need to have no judgment, no shame. Because it is a disease. And we need to get people medicine. If a diabetic went into a hospital and said, "Hey, I need this medicine," they're going to give it to them. They're going to help. Why aren't we doing that same for this? Yes, sir.
There's a book titled, Everything We Knew About Addiction is Wrong, written by Johann Hari. You familiar with the book?
Yep.
He explains the reason why is because the experiment, the whole concept is based on are these rats that are in prison and offered plain water and water laced with cocaine. It's the wrong foundation of the experiment. They conducted another experiment, which you can probably go see on YouTube video, a few minutes long. It's called Rat Park, where they are not isolated. They're with a group of rats. They're offered food, toys, whatever. No problem with addiction. Second, I disagree with your position that we should not legalize drugs. I don't know if you're familiar with what they did in Portugal in 2001. And they decriminalized all drugs, including cocaine and heroin. Everything the opposition said would happen did not. The reduction of the arrest, reduction of use of teens, there's money for, for help. So the only problem I have with their experiment is the fact that they didn't go all the way and legalize, because you still have the production and distribution, which is illegal, which continues to create the conflict between the establishment and the people that want to use. In response.
You know, on that, and I see where you're coming from, and I try to look at all things. I just, and I've seen a lot of those experiments. I've seen a lot of those experiments, even I believe in Iceland, they had where you could come into a place, they would medically shoot you up every day for 3 months, then get you into a program, but you had to agree to it, otherwise you're going to jail. You know, but their criminal rates went down, huge. I mean, to less than 1% of criminal activity related to drug use. The problem that I have with is what it creates, and there doesn't seem to be an answer for what are we going to do about that. Here's what I'm talking about. A lot of safe injection spots they talk about too, but what it brings along with it is we have to have answers for that too. Prostitution. It brings because.
Well, that gets into the reasons why people become addicted or search for something to eliminate their pain and hopelessness. The example of the Rat Park, where you have people that have what they need to have an enjoyable life, right? Which brings us back to the bigger picture, and that is healthcare, education, and opportunity for people to make a contribution to society, and in return receive a decent standard of living. Okay? So then you don't have the prostitution and the other problems that you're talking about. Right?
I would hope, you know, I mean, it would have to. I just think that so much would need to be looked at, and it's not something that we can take lightly. A lot of these countries where these things have happened are third world countries, and you know, we're a huge country.
But the bottom line is still the same. People are looking to relieve their pain, misery, and hopelessness, right? And we are not addressing those issues.
Right, which is what we need to.
And the reason why we're not addressing those issues is because we have a thoroughly complete, corrupt electoral process.
Also,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Pete. Norway is an third world country and they have legalized drugs and set up harm reduction clinics in places where people can shoot up safely. So,
What it is brought, as far as the safe injection, it's just what it brings. I just don't see what, you know, the prostitution, the drug dealers, it's still all there.
The drug dealers are gone because it will then be legal.
In that area, yes, in that area, yeah.
Well, no, this is the point. If you really want to address the problem, which you said earlier in the beginning when you opened up, was that this deal, there are many variables in the equation, but you have to deal with the fundamental variables in order to address the results of our failure to do those.
Ashley,
So to address the issues that us addicts are trying to hide, that's what we're trying to provide in with treatment, is mental health. Because addiction and mental health are hand in hand. When people, for me, I can only speak for myself, when I smoke weed, that's not enough, that's not a good high for me. It's good enough, and then eventually it'll lead me to something else. That's because I'm an addict. And when I don't want to feel those things, then I'm going to move to something that is going to help me not feel that. But right now, what we're trying to do, our nonprofit, is one of our projects is to get mental health into treatment centers, because you can't treat addiction without treating mental health.
The whole thing is a healthcare issue.
The drugs are only
Trying to continue to address it by not addressing the illegality of the drugs and dealing with the broader issues that force us to compartmentalize our responses. You said it. It's a mental health, part of it is a mental health thing. Well, the mental health is not covered, first of all, we don't have everybody covered under a healthcare system, and mental health is not part of it. So it is because we are failing to deal with the fundamental issues that all of us need to have access to.
So what are you trying to say that we should have access to?
Well, first of
Legalizing
all,
drugs?
yes, it would take, you take the criminal aspect out of it, you take it from something that is a law enforcement problem and put it into a healthcare issue category. Okay? Now you're not dealing with the drug use and abuse through a criminal justice system, you're dealing with it through a healthcare system.
Well, what about the dealers?
The dealers will go away because now you have legalized the production and distribution
You're saying
of,
to legalize heroin, or
yes,
why?
because
Whether you have safe injection sites or not, for me as an addict, that's telling me that it's okay for me to go get high.
no,
That
it's,
it's okay for me
Right.
to go to the safe
I
injection
would
site.
ask you to go look up what I just presented. Go look up go take a look at what Johan Hari's research has done. Go take a look what Portugal did. In 2001, Portugal they decriminalized all drugs, including cocaine and heroin. The opposition said that it would increase the number of people being addicted, it would increase crime, the kids would get access to it. Absolutely none of that happened. The complete opposite happened. As a matter of fact, there are two reports. One was done by Glenn Greenwald at The Intercept in 2011, where he reviewed the results of their experiment, and there was another article that came out just recently out of The Guardian saying that basically it was such a success, why is this not being replicated around the world, all right? You take it away from the criminal justice system, put it into the healthcare system. At the same time, you address the issues that are driving people to the drugs, and that is, again, the hopelessness, and
So Pete, you're saying Portugal did that,
Portugal, absolutely, yes.
not just the legalization, they did the other stuff.
No, they decriminalized all drugs, including cocaine and heroin.
Okay, but they also put it into a mental health.
Yes, it was they were using the healthcare system to deal with it. They said this is ridiculous. It's crazy to continue to deal with this as a criminal justice issue. It's a healthcare issue.
I don't think that we could control, just in this, and just knowing how things are out there, I don't think we could control it. Because we're always looking for that next high. And what is gonna be, I don't think you'd ever be able to stop having the dealer and the drugs out there.
Go take a look at the research.
I
Go take a look at it, and then we can talk.
Okay, we've gone, is there any other questions that we put on? Bonnie's back here.
Yes.
Yeah, this will be maybe a little focus. What I'm hearing you say really, for us who you might be asking to do something, I don't know if that's what you're asking exactly.
Sure.
Is that you need resources. Let's just put a general category. You outline some, but
Sure.
general category. Okay. So maybe there are things we could support with, given you're talking about mental health, you're talking about services to help people, some support for that. I would also say though, and this gets to what Pete's been saying, because I'm with the Green Party, we have positions on, we accept marijuana, and we are against, we want to have drugs legalized. So one of the things would be good, if you're doing, it sounds like you're really doing a good job of outreaching with people, I would suggest some neighborhood groups in the city, because you can get a little tricky here with people who've been doing work on these things, and then they kind of get a little annoyed if somebody comes in and says, well, you didn't talk to us about it. And I'm not saying it's a bureaucracy thing, it's really, these are grassroots people too.
Sure.
So we can connect with that. And the other piece of it is that approach, which stresses the service, would minimize the politicalization. Because if you start getting into, we'll just take the Green Party, which we support, the treatment part, we support. We
Sure.
support everything that,
Sure.
all the things that Pete said that we should be doing, we support very strongly. So, but to get into if you politicize it too much, without even intending to, you're gonna get into these other pieces, which will start taking away from, and I don't mean taking away in the sense that they're bad.
Right.
You understand what I'm trying to say? Taking away, so let's focus on, okay, you keep organizing.
Sure.
We're not clinicians either. We don't, you may be telling us that people here know some of the better approaches maybe, but we're not clinicians. We're not gonna say, well, gee,
Right.
we're gonna take your word for looking at things,
Right.
okay? So I think that might be the focus, and, trying to because, you may wanna go to, get this word out, the Democratic Party, to ask them to help you too. I shouldn't be saying that, but but you understand my point.
Sure.
These are rights of people. These are basic human needs. It's just like food and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We want to do those things without necessarily having to over politicize them. Now we are a political party, so
Right.
let's not forget we have positions, and those positions are that Pete is kind of referring to, or I think that's what you're doing. Are strong.
Right, absolutely.
Well, one of the things Portugal did was greatly increase the amount of funding they put into the harm reduction sections and into drug treatment and drug prevention. And there has been no study that identifies whether it was the legalization or the greatly increasing funds to drug prevention and treatment that actually had the effect that you're looking
But
at.
you're not spending the money on law enforcement, you're not
By the
feeding
way-
the conflict
by the way,
between the
You're speaking.
cops and the.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right.
What I'm saying is
No, I understand.
that whatever we do, what Portugal did was double the amount of money they spent on drug prevention and drug treatment, which is part of, do the things that satisfy the person. And it is perhaps that which has had such a good effect in Portugal.
Which leads to Johan Hari's research.
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm very sympathetic to what he's saying, but I don't think it lends itself to the context with which we're trying to make some immediate progress here. And so, just to try and bring us back a little bit, one of the things was a question. It's just a quick point of clarification. You mentioned something about they don't send people out anymore, and I think you had a reply saying, "Well, that's helpful." It was a long time ago. Well, so people are getting calls for drug overdoses. They're not responding. Is that what this is?
There are certain sections, that they're well, in Ohio, the law that they're trying to get passed right now is if a person has been, if first responders have been sent out 3 times, to not send them out anymore for any other calls for them.
Is that happening here though? In any way?
In New York, no, that is not. I was just giving an example of just how things are, how people's thoughts are turning. I agree, I mean, for me, drugs are just a symptom of my issue. There's no doubt about it, that it's just a symptom of it. And that's why I do every day. I work on my recovery. It's gonna be something I'm gonna have for the rest of my life, that to get to that problem, to figure that problem out.
So relative to your relationships you've already built with people here.
Yep.
I went to one of Ted Baxter's campaign.
Yeah.
Todd Baxter.
Yeah.
That's it.
I
Campaigns.
wish Ted that.
I got that. And he was very passionate about working with prison populations, jail populations, because the substance abuse problem is not dealt with when they're incarcerated.
Right.
And so he's actively trying to consider how, as acting sheriff, he can fix that when they're
That's correct.
So you're already in conversation with him, are you?
Right, yeah, and they are trying, and they have been, even now, they have been working on different programs to bring in a lot of 12-step groups They are bringing in different courses, teaching people, different things.
Yeah, he also like when an addict gets arrested for using and has drugs on them, they call us to get them into treatment and have that be an option instead of going to jail to get treatment and do 6 months of halfway house, either detox, inpatient, halfway house, and get the treatment that you need, the mental health that you need, instead of going to jail.
But now that sounds fantastic. It's just, I'm a little shocked because, I mean, the election was just November. Is he sheriff already?
In January,
In
we will be
January.
Oh, these are all, they're all,
Gates Police, this is what Gates Police, we're working with Gates
With Gates
Police at this
Police,
point.
and we're
Gates
hoping that
Police
they
is
can win.
moving into we're going into the city and we're working with them right now for them to,
Start.
work with us.
Right.
so you feel as though the county sheriff will transition to that?
Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, that's great. Good question.
Would it be helpful to you to have a candidate who espouses your position?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are you running for, Ro?
It's good enough. It's one of the tools that we have
County drug
that other groups don't have. We
County
have.
drug.
And that gives us access to press. An articulate candidate could help to tell your story. We
Absolutely.
don't win a lot of elections, but we can get the word out.
We stick with a platform that we've worked on for years, so
Of course.
the drugs.
It has to be
You have to have
has to be
people who are
synchronized.
those,
Of course.
I just want to be sure that we're not misleading people. There's things that can be done, because as I said, if we don't over politicize it, and that's, when you get run for office, you have to be truthful with people. And so you don't want to just tell somebody, we're gonna do this, and then people here have every right, you had strong feelings about what Kate was saying, they have every right to feel that way. It's just that our position has been very, very well thought through. We're not people who don't think about things. We don't trust
And if
that.
a candidate, I'm sorry, I thought you were done, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, one other thing to keep in mind, when we invaded and occupied Afghanistan, the Taliban had nearly eradicated the poppy fields. Since we've been there, they've had bumper crops.
Well, okay, so with the Green Party of Monroe County really can't do anything about that. So like.
But pushing,
No, I
Again,
don't, so if I'm
pushing-
running for city council, and if I go out there saying we should legalize drugs, well, that can't happen at a local level. I don't think it can anyway. So for me to espouse that really wouldn't make a heck of a lot of
but
sense.
like Rome was saying, is that it offers you a platform to draw the connection between the result of our failure to recognize that the war on drugs is a complete and utter failure. And draw the attention to where the war on drugs was escalated was during the Nixon administration, when, it was Advisor Ehrlichman in the late 90s, admitted, yes, we knew exactly what we were doing. All right, we had a problem with two groups of people, the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. And they directed their attention to the pot with the anti-war movement and the heroin with the civil rights community.
Well, one of the things as a candidate, I believe, is I like to try to talk about local stuff. And one of the things that a lot of the places that have gone with some sort of legalization have done is they have basically, if you're caught with drugs on you, what they do is they try to aggressively target you for treatment. And they have put a lot more money into facilities for drug treatment. And, one of the things we don't do here is we don't try, and I hadn't heard about the program in Gates, you said?
Yeah.
Where they're trying to use an alternative sentencing technique to get people to go through it. And, there's a lot of work to do here because there are judges who don't support the whole drug court idea presently on the bench in this area. And, the idea that perhaps treatment is a better solution is something that I have spoken about before. And, you know, I have tried publicly to never go against the legalization plank, but I believe that whatever we do, we need a lot more treatment, a lot more facilities, and we need to throw some money at this, which unfortunately we're very reluctant to do.
That's the consensus about it. I would argue not telling people at the local level, I would like you to go tell that to the black citizens in this community and every other community who suffered years and years, and made up a lot of the, between marijuana and the drug, raids and all that stuff, made up probably a third of the prison population for the last 20 years. So please, don't go that direction, because that's insulting some people who really, really suffered. I mean, because they not only suffered with the drug issue that we talked about here, but they suffered with something called racism. So I'm very sensitive to that because I see what happened, and I think you have to be honest with people too. All the positions we have local pieces, and maybe not the whole thing, but we need to be really straight with people.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. I in fact, I was at something the other night where somebody said, when it was, an inner city, a black thing, it was a problem. But now that it's a white thing, it's a pandemic. I mean,
Yeah, right. Words are interesting.
Yeah, that was then. This is now. Trying to. It's hard to go backwards, But I agree with you. Absolutely, they suffered. Absolutely.
I think a really key point from, I guess, a key piece of the puzzle, like from a clinical aspect, this issue is probably being to death, but getting healthcare professionals on board with restricting narcotic prescriptions. I mean, the amount of people that either I perform a Narcan wake up on, they say, I started with pain pills, or just the amount of people that are prescribed pain pills may not have a heroin problem, but just going through people's prescriptions and seeing how many of them are prescribed Oxycontin, oxycodone, hydrocodone, Percocet, it's astronomical.
Right.
And I think that sort of, I don't know if we can turn back the clock, but I think that we can start at a place and say, going forward, because essentially I think the damage may be sort of already done, but I think going forward we can say, hey, we're not gonna prescribe 18-year-old kids who are getting their wisdom teeth out oxycodone.
Right.
Or we're not gonna,
And we are starting on that too. Because you would be amazed. I mean, last time I had broke my ankle and I walked out of it with 90 pills, and going, I don't need 90 pills for,
And a lot of doctors are on board, but a lot of them aren't.
Right.
So
And that's where a lot of these kids have started, what has been a sports injury or just an injury in general, and, you started with that. The other one has been, going through grandpa's medicine cabinet and trying out what's in there. But, and that's, you get the pills, you get hooked on pills cost, $1 a gram, and pretty soon heroin's a really nice alternative. That has been a big issue. It's not the only issue, but it's been a big issue especially with the youth that we have. And I agree totally that right now, I think it's 10 days right now that they're writing out supplies for. Yeah, and 10 days you have to go back. And then if it's a regular thing, like for instance, I take Lyrica for a nerve damage from an accident that I have. That every month I knew I would get now it's once a month I have to go to the doctor every time. And this was after I've been taking it for like 3 years. Now all of a sudden I gotta go back every month. If that's the price I gotta pay right now for those type of laws to come through, that's fine. But it is being worked on, because that's a huge part of the problem.
You made some reassuring connections with law enforcement. I'm thrilled about how you're in dialogue with Baxter and the Gates Police.
Gates Police, Irondequoit Police, many of these town and village, they'd rather see them go into treatment than be shoved off to jail,
And I think that the Baxter's campaigning did a lot to bring that concern at the forefront.
Absolutely.
So, I'm not trying to be here to endorse topics.
No.
I just have to say, I want to say that though. But other,
Other things that we are doing, that
I mean, what, for example, so you've reached out to law enforcement, you have a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
What about like musicians? Or I know a friend of mine actually is with an organization, they supply clean needles.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Part of harm reduction, absolutely. Those issues are, but the other thing that we're trying to do is that people that are in jail, is that before they are released, if they have had this before, if they have had a drug issue before, of setting them up on a Vivitrol. Offering them, if they would like, we're gonna set you up so that on the day you walk out, you're gonna have this Vivitrol shot done before you walk out. And that is gonna stop you from being able to get high on heroin. They're making that offer to a lot of the prisoners right now, which a lot of them are taking it up.
How long will that last?
30 days, but they're automatically set up for another appointment. Yeah,
That sounds like the earpiece thing you talked about was
Yeah.
kind of like the technological Vivitrol then.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
well, the piece that I was talking about takes away the symptom. It takes away the withdrawal that you're going through withdrawal. This is actually, it's an opiate blocker. This shot is an opiate blocker, and it also works for alcoholics also. If they drink on it, they get very, very sick on it. And it's been very successful so far. And the jail has been offering that to different prisoners as they're getting ready to leave, because as we have talked to a lot of people that have been incarcerated, they're scared to leave the jail, to be honest with you, because they don't know what's gonna happen when they walk out. So, this option has been given to them, and a lot of them have taken up on it.
One other thing, there've been a couple of reports that I've seen, I haven't looked into it very deeply, but there's an herb called kratom, Kratom, which is supposed to be helpful in alleviating addiction.
Yeah, I've heard of
They're trying to make it illegal now.
Yeah, I've been, yeah, I know. I've heard about it probably about a month ago, and I've started to read into it, and it is very interesting. It's very interesting, and I think, that does need to be looked at too. I don't know all that much about it.
There are also studies showing how marijuana has been helpful in dealing with opiate addiction.
There have been, you are correct.
So the research is there, just gotta hold these people accountable. The problem is, you're not gonna get them to be accountable when the system is thoroughly corrupt.